We have all presenters here, so it is really a session in presence. My name is Hartmut Asche from the University of Potsdam in Germany, and I have the honor to chair this session. You know, we have a tight excursion trip, and for those who want it, there's lunch and the closing ceremony. So I would like to remind every presenter to keep to their time so that we finish in time. All right, so let's start with the first presentation. And the presenter is Kostas Goulias from the USA. His topic is complex network analysis of imported and exported goods in the United States of America. Here you go. Thanks.
No, because I think the camera doesn't work.
The camera is turned that way. That's good.
So about 15 minutes of talk and maximum 5-minute questions.
So where do I stand here? Anyway, it's all right.
Okay. And you've got a co-author that I wanted to mention. Who is she?
Who is she? Yeah.
All right.
Who is she?
Come on.
This is a this is a recurrent joke in my laboratory. This is a recurrent joke among the Chinese. So anyway, she's in China right now.
Okay.
So good morning, everybody. First of all, I would like to thank whoever nominated this paper to get an award. We are very, very grateful. And I'll start quickly with the objectives. So the idea behind all this, what you will see in a few minutes, is to be able to look at the country, at the region, even at the city, and identify hubs, central nodes, through which all the goods are passing, all the people are passing. The intersection by the hotel that we are staying in, the Novotel, is one hub. For you to understand, input, output. We want to figure out if there are neighborhoods. In regional science, these are called functional regions. And when we look at the world as a network, we want to figure out the topology of it. And then figure out if there are some places that are vulnerable to attacks. So this is from the United States. The United States is panicking with identifying vulnerabilities of its network, and this is the network we're going to be looking at. So we see at the movement of goods from origins to destinations, that are the nodes, and links, that are the origin destinations along which goods are moved. In this presentation, I'm not going to talk about tonnage of goods or crude oil of movement or things like that. It's going to be just money. The money that the value of the goods that are moved from one place to another, and you can see already the major metropolitan areas that are emerging in the network. I will show you some results in a second. The movements are directional movements. So, for example, $1 billion of 2022 goods moved from Los Angeles to New York, and half of that moved from New York to Los Angeles. So we can identify the relationships among the nodes in this way. The data are coming from a major database maintained every year in the United States. It's called the Flight Analysis Framework. It is a compilation of all kinds of statistics for all goods that are moved in the United States. They're working right now also on services. Services means banking relationships, but these are for physical goods, TVs and cars and diamonds and coal and potatoes, whatever you want. And this is a collaboration of many agencies. The bottom line is they divide the United States in 132 major nodes. And for example, in Texas, we will have the Houston as a node, but then Dallas, Fort Worth, and Austin, Texas, and then the rest of Texas as another node. In this way, we map the whole country, and we know how much of different types of commodities are moving from one place to another, and then convert all that into dollars, into value. I'm going to skip this. So the key is, what are the topological differences of the different networks? In this presentation, in this paper, we divide the movements into domestic, goods produced in the United States and consumed in the United States, the value again. Imports, goods that are produced outside the United States but end up in the States. And then exports, produced in the United States but then exported to the world. And we want to find out what are the critical nodes. If you are a terrorist, you want to find out which node to go and attack and to harm the United States. At the end, I will tell you that you can harm the rest of the world if you do that. So this is one of the objectives. But then, key and very, very important for me and for transportation people is to find whether or not groups of nodes, of regions, exchange goods more often than with other regions. And you will see that there is no surprise in that. And then, what is the membership? Which node within a group is the hub, and which nodes are the peripheral? I can tell you already, so that I get the point through. The domestic, the imports and the network and the exports networks are very different, but they have some commonalities. That's what we found. So the usual clustering of nodes or locations are based on closeness, how close they are in distance. Complementarity, maybe in the context of the United States, cars are manufactured in Detroit, but windshields and doors and other components are in Ohio or Indiana, in different places. So you know that there will be more interchange of goods among those places. And we want to be able to do this for the value of the shipping commodities, the tonnage, and the tonnage miles for a variety of applications. There is a competing method to what I will show you. It is the spatial interaction method, or the gravity model, or whatever else you want to see. The amount of goods implicitly accounts for the cost of travel, transportation, etc. So you will see that actually the networks can do that. But let me go through a very simple example of the difference of this method. We're going to look at the world made of nodes and links, and we'll forget about the geography for a second. And we're going to have a network of size 132 by 132. And that's the network size is based on the nodes. The node size is based on the node degree. How many connections do I have with all the other nodes? I can multiply the number of connections by the amount of goods in value that is moving from one place to another. That's called weighted degree, weighted out degree when they export it, weighted in degree when they export it. And obviously, bigger the degree, bigger the node, more of a hub it becomes. And then we have things like graph density, which means how many nodes are connected in a maximum number of links over the total number of possible links. The graph diameter would be the how much do I have to travel through the shortest path to reach every other node. And those tell you how big of the node that we have. And then we have clustering coefficients that tell you, okay, do we have some of these nodes that cluster together and form a functional region? And then the membership in the clusters are the groups of the nodes. And here is a simple example. Obviously, this is not United States. So we have this part of the network that has multiple connections. And then we have these poor guys down here. Cannot use this, that's okay. That if I cut one of these links, they are isolated. They don't get anything. The weights I was talking about is the tons of stuff. Stuff is a technical term. A to B 100, C to D 1000. Obviously, this is a major more of an exchange. And then I can compute the weighted degree. Really, I take the number of connections, multiply the goods that go out, and I get the weight degree. Nothing to write home about. I'm going to accelerate a little bit. There is a method to apply that says, okay, if these nodes were randomly connected, what type of index would they have? And then compare the observed connectivity to the random connectivity, and this is called modularity. and it's called the Louvain method because what they did the first time. So we're going to use this indicator to tell us which nodes belong together in a group. Right? It's a comparison between the totally random space array versus the systematic one. And if we want to compare different networks, the same network, I add connections to show that the average degree increases, the average weighted degree increases, and then the diameter decreases because I can reach more networks. And obviously, this is less vulnerable than this because if I cut the link over here, I get isolates. If I cut this link, I have alternate or redundant connections. So that's what we're looking at. We are going to look at the 132 by 102 origin destinations. We will divide the goods into the value of the goods into the imports in year 2022 is the most recent year validated with real data by the Oak Ridge National Laboratory. Imports, exports, and domestic. Domestic, I will start. We did the domestic to use it as a comparison, as a benchmark, if you want. So the average degree in the domestic is 131.485. 132 is all the nodes, means all the nodes of the 132 are connected to all the nodes in the United States. If you take a look at the map of the United States of the highways, you're going to see why. The number of edges, the connectivity is 17,356. Obviously, this is a very, very, very connected network, which means, and it has very high clustering coefficient, and the graph density is 1, which means the majority of the nodes are belonging to this maximum connectivity. So when you run this and you run also the Louvain method for clustering, we find out the typical things that we have one region in the New York, New Jersey area, one around Los Angeles, one around Chicago. So I will show you this. So this is the hub. The first is this is the total degree in and out of domestic goods. Los Angeles emerges as major, Chicago another one. New York is divided in this database into New York East, if you want, New York West, because the agglomeration of the urban environment in the New York and New Jersey area is one big globe, in essence. So they divide it into two, but this tells you the hubs. I do not use the XY coordinates, the longitude and latitude for this, and neither for the clustering. When I do this, when I assign to every node and I map it with the longitude and latitude, now we see the typical American subdivision, the Northeast, the Southeast, the South Central. Texas is the major state with all the nodes in Texas. The Far West, with Los Angeles being the major hub because of Long Beach and Port of LA. They import 43% of the goods there, or they produce quite a bit. This is the domestic, so no import, no export yet. And then there's a very strange thing happening here, where you have Detroit and another area identified here, and then Chicago includes also North Dakota. I will tell you the story about North Dakota if we have time. So this is the benchmark we're going to use. And these are the major hubs, and these are the regions. And we can say, okay, what percent of nodes belong in every region? It's fairly balanced, except for the Detroit one, that is a long functional region. This contradicts some of the political geography of United States, but that's okay. This is a network, so we can do that. When we do the imports and the exports, the very first thing we see is that there are 130 to 131 something the connectivity degree of the domestic, but this is only 81, 73. The first finding is that not everybody participates in the wealth generation by imports and exports in the United States. Sad story, but that's the reality. The average weighted degree obviously is lower because the United States, yes, imports quite a bit, but produces a lot more than what it imports. But the network diameter is 3, which means that I can reach within 3 steps every other node. So major connectivity. This is very good because it's also decreases vulnerability, and we like that. When I look at imports, Los Angeles emerges as a major hub. But then look, New York is the second, and then we have Chicago, Detroit, and down here we have Laredo, Texas. That's interesting, isn't it? And I'll tell you the story of Laredo in a second. The regions now change. So the key point, as our chair said, is that the imports have a different network than domestic goods, and the functional regions are different between the imports and the domestic, which means different nodes collaborate in different ways depending on the goods, right? The key part here is that, for example, in this case, Laredo, Texas emerges as the major ratio out degree versus in degree. And the reason for this is because Laredo is a major gateway to Mexico in the south. There is also the North Dakota, and belongs to the Midwest with Chicago, because North Dakota is the place where crude oil is produced, imported also from Canada. You will see it in the next slide, and then refined in the Chicago area. So of course the value is very high. So international exports by port of exit and communities defined based on export origin. So this is the export origin, where I produce something in Seattle, then I send it to Los Angeles, and then it goes away, and you can see clearly the far west emerges again. And then immediately in exports we see Detroit. Yes, it is a big hub for one of the regions, but Laredo belongs to Detroit, right? Why? Because Detroit produces, yes, car manufacturing goes to Laredo, and from there to Mexico. Or car manufacturing parts.
Yes.
Yeah.
For example, BMW
Yeah,
3
yeah.
Series is produced in San Luis Potosí. In Mexico, well, the parts are coming from Detroit, to make things even more interesting in the world market. So exports, this is another example of the exports. And you can see actually how a region, Midwestern region, is influenced by nodes down here. So completely different than the contiguity and the closeness that the gravity model will show, and that's why I'm in favor of this versus the gravity, because the gravity model will force nodes to be together. This does not. So, and then again, Laredo is coming out as nobody knew Laredo until this presentation. now I made them famous. They own me one, and this is the reason. It has what's that? It's a major import-export. You should know that the two major trade partners of the United States is Canada and Mexico. In spite of what some administrations say about NAFTA, it's the best thing that ever happened to the United States in terms of economic development. But then there is this negativity. Laredo is, in my opinion, environmentally destroyed by its own success, bridges, they even have ports. And they export and import quite a bit. There is another one, Corpus Christi. I don't show it here, but because it's a major refinery and the export of oil to Europe, especially now with Ukraine. And they have also their own environmental problems, exactly because of their economic success. Something that one can do with all this data and all this analysis is to point out the weighted degree of imports in million USD in 2022 versus weighted degree in exports. And then you can see Los Angeles is king to everything, right? The money flows to Los Angeles freely. But then down here on this side, we have locations that actually are very, very low in exports, relatively low, but high in imports. So they get the imports and then distribute them everywhere else. And the opposite over here. And you can see Houston, for example, it's a major export facility. What does Houston export? Well, refined oil, diesel, and gasoline to all of South America and Europe. So we know that. Now, large portion of the United States does not gain from exports and import substantially. And why is this a problem? Because the local economy doesn't gain anything. They just pay to get goods from abroad, but the They participate in the domestic market but do not gain in the global economy. So one of the suggestions is make everybody become participant. So what are the threats? Okay, we know quite a bit of things. Port of LA, congestion. These are containers that stay there for days and days to be transported. And if you are a trade person, you don't want your container to be in the. And then we have examples of an arson on the Interstate 10 that stopped the exports and imports of Los Angeles. So Los Angeles is a major threat to the American economy. What is the solution? Well, distribute the container and the movement along the West Coast all the way from Seattle down to Mexico. The problem is that Seattle doesn't want in Tacoma to import anything because it's a pristine location of endangered species, so there is a trade-off. The second part, if I show you this map, quite a bit of commerce happens down here. This is the Gulf of Mexico, or the Gulf of the United States, if you want. And there are all kinds of oil wells down here with pipelines going in, and also pipelines coming down here for refineries, Beaumont, etc. When a hurricane hits here, it stops the entire economy of the South Central, and then it impacts everybody else. So the examples are, the Harvey, Katrina, and right now we're having a threat of another case. The solution here, I don't have a solution for this because it's multi-trillion-dollar investment to create a refinery, and there is a solution to get away from fossil fuels, but that's a long story.
Then wait.
Yeah, and then the more recent is a container ship hits a bridge in Baltimore, and it has repercussions in the same network that we found, the same functional region. When this happened, New York got impacted because the ships got rerouted to Philadelphia and New Jersey and New York. Okay, so the answer is obviously yes, we do have vulnerability issues. I gave you some examples. We do have other issues that are not shown clearly in the presentation and this analysis. These are the pipelines. If you remember the news, some hacker went into the Colonial Pipeline. It's a pipeline that goes from Texas, east Texas, all the way up to New York and carries gasoline, petrol, some of you could call it. And which means that when the hackers went in, the pumps ran out of gasoline in New Jersey. And they were wondering why, and the prices went up. This is solved by fortifying the pipeline along the East Coast, but also developing more pipelines across the United States. The key finding, not only of this paper but other papers, is that we need a reorganization of exports in the South Central US. And I think I have also enough time to tell you one story.
Okay.
United States, especially some administrations, claim that we are moving towards climate action, positive steps. That's very nice, very nice story. Well, here's the real story, that very soon the United States will reach 20% of its energy produced by renewable resources, but also is going to export 20% of energy to the rest of the world. And the 20% that is exported actually is petroleum, crude petroleum, and gasoline. So it's a little bit hypocritical to say, yeah, we are going to help the world by producing more energy. But by the way, Europe, why don't you burn our oil? And in fact, one of the most important importers of gasoline and crude petroleum from the United States is South Korea. So how is South Korea going to meet the goals of climate action? I don't know. And with this, thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Doctor. I'm afraid there is no time for questions. We'll have to leave it to, I don't know, whatever break or the excursion. And we'll have to carry on with it with the second presentation. And that's a presentation by Rodrigo Tapia McClung and Rodrigo Lopez Farias. And their topic is an approach to spatial optimization on positioning surveillance cameras. Rodrigo, the floor is yours. Okay. And sorry for keeping to the time.
Okay,
Do you need to, is it translated from the online? But, great, thanks. Thanks for the welcome and everyone for being here on the last day, so we made it. Yeah. So the motivation for this work is I've worked with in a similar project with the master students in the past, and well, it's important to. So,
So Rodrigo.
okay. So.
That's the baby, sorry.
That's okay. So yeah, well, the importance of this project or this research is that we all seen there's monitoring cameras and surveillance cameras in places, mainly to prevent crime from happening, not necessarily to investigate what's going on with the crime, but to prevent it. We all know that CCTV, closed circuit television cameras, are popular, but they are expensive, right? So the aim of this research is to recognize specifically the spatial nature of how crime occurs, and then is it possible to maximize the coverage with a certain given number of cameras on the field, and at the same time minimize the costs of deploying those cameras. For that purpose, we focus on the spatial optimization approach. Previous work on the topic deals with many of those works back from the 70s. The art valley problem, the location set covering problem, the maximum covering location problem. So everything is basically coverage and location. And what I was trying to work on a couple of years ago was this. Can I create or can I work on a genetic algorithm sort of to mutate cameras based on their position and their characteristics and get better generations of cameras? And the problem that I was faced with is that the only sort of say genes that I had for my cameras were positions, X and Y locations. So if I cross and mutate those, I was usually ending up with cameras outside of my study area. So that wasn't really a very good approach. So I turned to the greedy algorithm, which is the baseline for this work. So we propose the criminal visibility index, so in a way to rank how suitable are cameras that can be located on the study area. So we identify the N top locations where N can be 10, 15, 100, 1,000 cameras, depends on your city and your setup, your street network and your buildings and your obstacles. But it's a parameter that we can adjust on our model or our algorithm, so we can work on that better and choose as many cameras as we want. And by using a greedy algorithm, which is just another way to say that we basically calculate this index for every dot on space, every point, every location, but we don't really use as XY coordinates. We turn it into a binary map or a raster map, very high definition map. So basically we test every pixel to see which ones are better. So our study area is in Mexico, central Mexico, a very small state called Aguascalientes, and that has a ring structure, set of streets in the center of the city, and we only focus on the first ring of the city because right around here, every year there's like a big fair, which has a lot of people coming in, and it's specifically during that time of year that crime goes up because it's party time, everybody's going crazy, nobody really cares about what's going on. So it's more easy for people to get robbed. We use city blocks and roads from the official source. We still have to work our way around using OpenStreetMaps as a different source because OpenStreetMaps is better in terms of all the road networks. The official ones only use the center line. But if we use those roads, then we cannot use the buildings because they don't really match each other. So there's a little problem with the projections. We use reference criminal data from 2008 from the General Attorney's Office. We do know this is not up to date. We still need to work with newer data or near real-time data to see how this could be enhanced. And we also have very little points, just a little over 1,300 points. So our index is developed as follows. We want to estimate the ability to detect how many or how much criminal activity is happening in a certain place. So we define a set of positions XY for our n number of cameras in the study area, and we assume a roughly even distribution over the years because it's not a very big city, and we do know that only during April or May crime rates go up because of the fair, and the rest of the year is pretty much the same throughout all the years. Our index depends on mainly three variables, spatial variables. How close is what is being observed, or the data points that we have, how close are they to our camera position, to our pixel, and we describe that using the Gaussian kernel, like this. Everyone knows what a kernel is, just a regular bell-shaped curve. And then we apply that Gaussian kernel to our raster images obtained from rasterizing our observed data points. And from those points, we also, for each pixel, we calculate the ISOVIST of each camera. So that's another way to say that if we were to position a camera, well, not here, but in a cross intersection, the camera cannot see through buildings, so we need to cut out like a cookie cutter shaped polygon. We extract that, and then we combine all this together, so we kind of get this kernel-shaped image, but restricted to the area of our ISOVIST polygon. So it's just another fancy way of saying that if something is outside a certain radius, it's 0, and if it's inside the area that we want to measure, we just calculate that image that I showed you before. And then we sum all the contributions of all the little pixels to create this essentially the visibility index. Then our function, it's like a multi-purpose objective function because we try to maximize our coverage but minimize the number of cameras that we need. So we have to sort of have an interplay with those. The algorithm, we start with a list of possible candidates, and essentially what we are doing is eliminating those that are not, or we keep the cameras that are performing better than the previous one. And if we don't have any other cameras that perform best, then that's the one that we keep, and that's not like our best generation. The raster image that I was talking to you about before is 1 meter resolution crime density map, and we only measure what's going on in a 50 meter radius because we assume that our cameras can see from one point to the other, like a city or a regular typical city block is about 100 meters, so we can use that. And then we ran some experiments using 25, 50, 100, 250, 500, and 1,000 cameras. We made all those runs. Obviously, we do expect as we increase the number of cameras, we will have better coverage. But how is that coverage going to be? You can see we have 25 cameras. We only are able to monitor or locate positions very sparsely in our map, in our study area. And as we increase, then we start creating some corridors of camera positions that could be helpful to actually follow up on a certain crime if it were to occur in the vicinity of this area. But as I said, it is not desirable to have the whole space covered in cameras. But it is important to measure how the coverage is increasing in terms of incidents, coverage in incidents, and covering the area of study. So it does seem that we have a certain empirical limit of roughly a 50% coverage or a 0.5 in our criminal visibility index. But we don't know for sure because this is extrapolated. We only computed up to 1,000 cameras, and we still need to run our simulations for all the rest of these numbers. But we do expect that it's going to stall eventually, and we're not going to be able to cover everything. And also, we would need to introduce the cost, the economic cost of putting, say, 20 or 2,000 cameras, so it could balance out what can be done. So this is just the beginning of this particular research. We do need to enhance how things are calculated in our algorithm. So we are looking into parallelizing our code wherever it's possible, and so we could probably reach these numbers or a higher number of cameras faster and more easily. But it is interesting that when we say if we have a 20 cameras, we only cover 7% of the area. We're only able to cover a very, very small percentage of the area. And if we go up to 1,000 cameras, then we have 53%. And obviously, this is a very small city. And another goal is to test the same methodology in a different city, say Mexico City, in which just one municipality has a small municipality has over 10,000 cameras. It's way above the limit that we reach here. So we need to see if that would work from the public management perspective, because see, like governments, they like to say they're spending a lot on our security, and they will put 60,000, 100,000 cameras in the city, but they're not going to use it because no one is going to be ever able to look at all those cameras and say, oh yeah, there's something happening there. No. So if we are able to convince the government, say, okay, you can cover the same area wherever things are happening with a portion of the cameras that you are actually using, then it's going to be cheaper, and then you are going to be able to put other people or like analysts in the police to look through those images and actually make sense of it. And then we could incorporate some other measures, probabilistic or statistical measures, with our like our time series of criminal incidents. Then we could see that a certain period of the day, on certain days of the week, it would be more important to monitor certain regions, and it would be easier for analysts and the police. And that's all. Thank you very much. Do we have time for questions? Or?
Yeah. There's time for questions.
Sure.
Thank you, Rodrigo, and thank you for keeping to the time. We have time for questions, question or two. Anyone? I have one. You mentioned it was a study.
Yes.
Is anything planned to put into reality for that place, or has there already been talks about implementation or whatever?
Well, there was, yeah. Back in 2018, when we used those same data points, we did not this particular study, but a previous version of this one that was sort of implemented in there. And for, I think it was 2018 or 19, that we proposed certain locations for monitoring during the fair. Mm-hmm. It did work, and it did brought the incidence levels significantly lower during that time. I don't know if they kept on using it because the project sort of finished and then we didn't follow up, but yeah.
Thank you. Well, it just shows your information makes sense. Okay.
Well, thank you.
Any more questions? Thank you again. Now we move on to the next presentation. Which is by Ivan Blecic, Valeria Sayu, and Giuseppe Andrea Trunfio, and it is called Enhancing Urban Walkability Assessment with Multimodal Large Language Models. You are presenting.
Very long title.
Excellent. Please, and also
The models are
time. Keep to the time.
Yes, of course. Okay. Should I use this?
So the camera, because it will be used here, it can use the keyboard.
Ah, okay, okay. Okay. Well, first of all, a very short introduction. The purpose of this research, which is actually at its early stage, is to exploit some new type, relatively new type actually, of language models, in particular multimodal large language models, to have some advancements in automatic evaluation of walkability in cities. Actually, the main objective was to obtain, besides the typical scores that we have when we apply automatic methods to evaluate walkability. Typically, we have numerical scores, numerical results that score the different levels of walkability. To have also text, qualitative text that describes and motivates also the obtained scores. So we have both numerical and qualitative evaluation, automatic evaluation. And as you can see, our preliminary experiments are quite encouraging. Well, first of all, typically the evaluation of walkability traditionally has been carried out in practice, measuring the features of the streets, but there are several disadvantages in proceeding in this traditional way. So for this reason, several approaches have been developed recently, exploiting essentially computer vision for obtaining an automatic and possibly massive evaluation. Here you can see the typical approaches based on computer vision that are, according to the literature, are the most applied in all the papers that you can find in the literature. Typically, you can exploit image segmentation or scene recognition, which is another typical approach in which you can understand, try to simulate the perception of a pedestrian. There is also, typically there are mixed approaches. All these are based on the most recent convolutional neural networks, even using also transformers, which is another architecture of our artificial neural network, very recent and very powerful. And these three approaches are typically mixed in order to obtain a score, to quantify numerically the walkability of a place. You can find a lot of papers on this in the literature. Our approach moves from the observation that there are some disadvantages, some problems with this computer vision only approach, especially because typically it's difficult to explain to the user, to motivate the user the obtained results. There are actually also strategies in computer vision to highlight the parts of the images that are more related to the output score, but they are not very usable, especially because typically you want to examine a number of images for each street. You can have, depending on its length, you can have several images. So our approach starts from observing this. That are the main problems of the typical computer vision based approaches, And we wanted to try, we started experimenting with this new multimodal large language models, in which we can exploit a very powerful modern architecture. There are several of them. I will show you some of the names. Maybe you will recognize some of the models because some of them are quite famous. And the objective was to exploit these new architectures, which are very, very powerful in understanding images, especially when accompanied with a description of the task that the model has to perform. In this image, I'm afraid it's not very clear, but you can see all these are multimodal large language models. We selected this one, Lava, which is very powerful and has the big advantages of being available in source code, so you can do several experiments. Other models are closed, so you cannot do the same the experiments with the same effectiveness. Okay, let's show you the architecture of this large language model we are applying. Essentially, we have an input image, which is typically a street view image of a part of the city, typically a view in one of the streets that we want to evaluate. Then, in contrast with the previous approaches, only based on computer vision, we also have a language instruction that accompanies the image. This is a big difference. Obviously, there is a complex architecture in which the image is transformed into tokens, essentially. There is an encoder which is pre-trained in a corpus of a number of millions of images. This is pre-trained. And then there is a connector. At the end, you have both the image and the language instruction transformed into a sequence of tokens. And the tokens are, at the end, represent the input to the large language model, which is a normal large language model. Okay? So in this way, the large language model can manage to process both images and instructions, essentially. Then we have a language response, which is also, in our case, it also includes a score, because as I will show you, we instruct the machine to provide us, besides the description, also a score. Okay, so let's skip this one. An important thing is that these type of models are very effective, much more effective than simple computer vision approaches and simple language processing approaches. This architecture is very effective in semantic understanding of the context. And this is what we actually exploit, okay? It's interesting to mention how the architecture, the machine is trained. We didn't train the model. We are using in these experiments a zero-shot learning approach, in which we just rely on what the model have learned during the normal training stage. This is an example. Typically, you have an image, and then you have, for example, a dialogue. This is an example of a dialogue. But there are three types of training data. This is an example of dialogue, but there are also complex reasoning, for example, or tasks requiring descriptions. This is a dialogue. the machine is trained in a way to be able to reproduce this dialogue given this image, essentially. Well, our experiments. Let's come to our. Are we late?
Yeah, you're in time.
Okay. Our experiment, well, because we have a lot of experiments, but I will skip some of them.
Very good.
We did two types of experiments. The first one, in the first battery of experiments, we wanted to compare the judgment of the lava, which is the name of the multimodal large language model we are using. The response of lava, we compared this response to the judgment of an experienced evaluator. We had a lot of these evaluations from a previous research. And we did this for several images. This is the instruction that we provide to the machine. As you can see, we consider that there is no much difference changing the instruction, the prompt, the so-called prompt. It's not, we performed a series of experiments, but it's not very influencing the results. This is what we ask to the machine. Look, we provide a template in which you have to put the score from 1 to 5, scoring the workability, and also the motivation. And he actually filled this template with the motivation very, very, very precisely. In terms, at least, of post-processing of the text. We didn't have any problem from that point of view. For example, this is an image. We have the human expert score. As I told you, this is we have this data from a previous research. And as you can see, in this case, there is an agreement between the score provided by the machine and the human experts, but also here we have the description, the comment motivating the score provided by Lava, which is actually absolutely in agreement with what a human expert would have actually provided as a motivation of his score. As you can see, he recognizes the presence of mixed urban and natural elements, and also he recognizes that there are some cars, there are sidewalks, and this indicates a pedestrian activity. He is able also to infer what can happen in that place, and the greenery is recognized, the fact that this is a pleasant and walkable environment, and so on. Even he recognizes that the sidewalk is wide and appears to be well maintained. Okay. Well, there are several experiments. Obviously, not always. Not always the scores are in agreement. Not always the scores are in agreement, but this is reasonable also because, as I told you, we didn't train Lava to do this specific task. We are relying on its capability as a general model. So I can, in the paper you will find a lot of these experiments. I'm not always the scores obviously are in agreement, and this is another example, and so on. In this case, there is agreement. The judgment, the motivation is always reasonable. In some case, he recognized some elements that for a human looking at the picture was very difficult to recognize. Okay. And we went into the picture to find Because at the beginning we thought it was an error, but indeed he was right. And so on. We have several experiments. In this case, the score is 1, which is reasonable. Then another example, just to finish this presentation. Another example, we did also an assessment of an entire city. Given that we have a data set of approximately 30,000 images from street view of the city of Cagliari, again from a previous research. So we wanted to try to evaluate all these images through the Lava multimodal large language model in order to map the walkability of the city. This is a thing that we already did in the past, relying only on the computer vision technology. So we wanted to perform this experiment again, but in this case, we also gain a qualitative description of each of the characteristic of each street. So obviously there is a problem. In this case, we have to aggregate besides the scores, because each street has in general several pictures, from 2 to 6 pictures. So aggregating the judgment in this case, besides the scores, which is relatively easy through majority voting or average, we used both. But we have to also to aggregate the textual judgments, because for each picture you have a textual motivation of the score. And for this task, we just used a normal large language model. In particular, we used the Mistral from Mistral AI, which is free, which can be easily accessed through Python programmatically. So all the qualitative judgments from Lava are then post-processed and aggregated into a single judgment for the entire street. This is a single motivation. So here you can see some of the results. This is a comment that is provided for the pictures, and in particular, for the street. This is the aggregated comment. It's the result of several pictures. Okay, as you can see, it's very reasonable, and all the things that are reported in this description are absolutely in agreement with what you can see, even staying physically in the place. Okay, at the end, this is an example of a street in which we have much more pictures. You see, he recognizes that there's a mix of urban elements with varying degrees of the pedestrian friendliness. So it's very, very precise. And the result in this case, I don't remember, is 3. It's 3 in terms of numerical score. At the end, we have the map. The map, differently from past maps that we computed, in this case, if you click on each of these streets, you have also a textual description and the motivation of the score. Then finally, to conclude, there are a lot of advantages in this type of approach, especially because typically in these descriptions you can find some suggestions for managing the improvement of the workability in each street. There is a limitation also. As I told, we relied on simple zero-shot learning. The model is general. Has not been trained to be an urban analyst. But this can be done. This will be the next step in which we will fine-tune Lava or another multimodal large language model to be more professional, let's say, in evaluating the workability. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrea, and also for keeping to the time. One brief question? Yes. Okay.
So the ultimate proof that a location is walkable is to actually observe pedestrians. And this is another study where I see images of a high score in walkability with no pedestrians.
Mhm.
What would happen if you insert pedestrians on purpose
Okay.
to the model? Will it recognize that, oh, people are walking,
Yeah,
they
of
have
course.
high walkability?
He actually it did. Sometimes you can, these are from Street View, from Google Street View. So sometimes there are pedestrians, a bit blurred sometimes, and it recognizes the presence of pedestrian. But obviously this is it's very occasional, so you cannot rely on this to perform a massive evaluation. The model is more oriented in evaluating the place. Not obviously it's true that if there are pedestrians, in some sense, but maybe they are not so happy pedestrians. No.
Okay, thank you. Very brief.
Yeah, I'm going very quick. Two questions, but too quick.
Yeah, just one.
Just about the lava model, how can you fine tune it? I'm working on something very similar with GPT-4, and I already tried fine tuning it. And there is additional knowledge base that you can add. So I was just wondering if you can do the same with lava, and is it going to retrain the model, or is it just additional knowledge to fine tune? First question, and second one, so very quick. How did you join the result with the map? Did you do it manually, or did you find a way to automate the process of going from the output to the map? Thank you.
No, the first question, I didn't catch the first question. So there was a bit of
So the
noise.
first question, you say that the next step would be to fine tune your model.
Yeah,
This is what he did
Does
already.
did Lava provide such functionality, or will you have to do the training again and everything again?
Okay, Lava is provided in terms of a library. It's a Python-based library. There are a couple of versions. There is the official version, and there is also the app phase version. They do not provide the source code for doing the fine-tuning, but it's relatively easy. It's essentially they provide also the source of the model the model. This is the class. So it's not that difficult. The difficult part is to find to prepare the data set, obviously, because as you can see, there is a dialogue sometimes. It's much more intensive from the point of view of finding the data compared, for example, to the normal large language model. But the problem is also the computational requirements. You need intensive computation. So Lava is a library, so you can just develop in Python your code for training. The second question was about
How did you link the result to the map?
a script in Python.
Okay.
There is
Okay.
a script in Python. We developed a small
Follow-up
script at time.
I'm afraid we'll have to leave it here. Sorry. And carry on with the next presentation. This is a presentation by Shiva Rahmani, Beniamino Morgante, Rosella Scorzelli, Grazia Fattoroso, and Alfonso Annunziata. Shiva will be presenting, and the topic is optimizing agri-voltaic integration, spatial analysis, and an AHP assessment. Here you go, Shiva.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Thank you for your presentation. I'm going to present optimizing agrivoltaic integration, and I'm from Italy, University of Basilicata. And the global issue like climate change that need urgent action, a push planner to considering more clean energy such as a solar panel, but most of the time this kind of installation occupied a huge amount of land that they need a careful study before implementation. Furthermore, the population growth that increased the food demand cause the careful attention for conserving the agricultural land. So agrivoltaic system could be considered as a solution because it coexistence of a photovoltaic panel with crop and livestock lands. It has a low environmental impact of photovoltaic and no loss of vital agricultural spaces. Also, it has a mutual beneficial relationship between energy production and agricultural system. So the interest of going through the agrivoltaic panels coming from the previous studies that we did, most of them, all of them are in Basilicata region. That they are in this, they are in intensive industry that in different type, like in Potenza, it's steel plants. Other two cases are the cement plant. And the fourth one is one of the most important oil platform in Italy. It's in Viggiano municipality. And the focus of this study is on agrivoltaic system that combines solar energy production with agriculture activity on the same land. So it's a promising solution for sustainable land use and renewable energy expansion in rural area, but still it's require careful design to balance energy production and agricultural need, and it's higher initial cost than separate system solar panels. For the methodology, in the first step, we define the some main criteria and the concentrating factors. And then for each of them, we divided them to some subcategories. And through the AHP method, we calculate the weight for each of them. And the other side, by the GIS software, we did a special analysis for each subcriteria, and at the end, by overlaying them, we reach the suitability map that shows us the most suitable land for implementing the agrivoltaic plants. First step of the spatial analysis is to considering the concentrating factor to identify area suitable for implementing the agrivoltaic. So the area that we are excluded from the total area is the natural area and reserve built-up areas, industrial areas, agricultural areas used for cultivation of vineyard, fruit trees, berry plantation, and olive. Also, the areas that are protected, that they are protected by laws. And here we have the main criteria that are divided into three main groups: technical, economic, and ecological. For the technical, we consider slope, solar radiation, aspect, land surface temperature, elevation, skyway factor, wind exposure index, and water deficit. For the economic, we calculate the proximity to the road and electricity network proximity, and for the last one, the land use capacity. The process of the AHP analysis, we did a comparison matrix. It's an expert-based. We discussed with different experts in the field of energy, economy, urban planning, and so on. And at the end, we calculate the weights for each sub-criteria. And because each of them has a different unit, so we normalize each layer and reclassify all the layer into 5 different groups. 5 different groups from high to low, which is high is most suitable areas, and in the other hand, the 5 is the area with low suitability. The slope of the land is crucial both for the placement of a solar panel and for agricultural productivity. The optimal orientation and angle of inclination for the panels to maximize energy production, thus placing the front facing south, are determined by the slope. It shows that our area, the result shows that it has a good percentage of slope. And the solar radiation is one of the essential criteria for a good performance of an agrivoltaic system. The area of interest is averagely affected by solar radiation, a key factor for the good performance of an agrivoltaic system. We also consider aspects to ensure adequate plant growth. One must keep their physiological function in good condition through regular sun exposure. Southern and western orientation in general are considered optimal because they promote for a significant part of the day. And land surface temperature also is considered. Monitoring the earth surface. It let us to control a factor that affect crops such as soil moisture and air temperature under panels. We can detect higher value at the center part of the region. For the skyway factor, we consider it because it shows the percentage of the shadow that's covered by the plant. So it's important to consider it because we can know how much of the lands are covered by the plant. So our area of interest has a low skyway factor, which is not an extremely positive aspect for a possible agrivoltaic system. Wind exposure also is considered because sometimes dust can has a negative effect on the functionality of agrivoltaic, and a water deficit. It can help us later to after implementing the agrivoltaic panel because they can keep the water in the soil. So this map shows us which areas has the most water deficit that we can implement the agrivoltaic panel there to improve the situation in that area. About the proximity to the road, we use the ORS, Open Road Service plugin in QGIS. It's an it's calculated distance in the based on time, because for us it was important the fastest way to reach that area. And also the electricity network proximity is considered that it helps to a reduction in operating costs, as well as an opportunity to integrate energy storage solution into agrivoltaic systems such as solar batteries. And this is the secretary for the environmental criteria, which shows us the opportunity of the agricultural land, which we have to conserve them. And this is the final map that we overlay all the map through the map algebra overlay tool, and it shows us the suitability lands for implementing the agrivoltaic panels. The center of Basilicata turns out to be an average suitable area for the installation of an agrivoltaic system. So to conclude, the results show that Basilicata has significant potential for agrivoltaic development in suitable areas, and agrivoltaics can contribute to renewable energy goals while preserving agricultural productivity. And for the future site-specific study and pilot project recommended to validate findings.
Thank you, Shiva. Time for one question. Any question? Okay, again, this was a study, and do the findings that you have, these preliminary findings, do they find their way into reality, or have they already found their way into reality with the local authorities or regional authorities?
This is a project. No, this
Yeah,
is a project we have, based on with the NAIS, the
Yeah, yeah.
National Agency of Environment and Energy, and it's based on the next generation EU. No, the question is also we have also compared this study also with the stakeholders, local authorities, but also the enterprises interested in in developing this area. They are probably now that we have to find more data with more detail and more accuracy in several layers, but in order to have more important results. But we are quite satisfied that we can also support the decision maker in this spirit.
Good news. Thank you. Thank you, Shiva, again. And now for the last presentation. It's only the last in the number of presentations, of course. It's a presentation by Piotr Werner, Mariusz Sporczek, Veronika Calera, and Piotr Branch. It's called Automated Parcel Machines Innovation, a case study of InPost in the EU and Poland. Please, Piotr.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for the possibility to present it. I wish my graduate, Piotr Branch, could not come here, but I hope he will use it, the conclusion source. Let's start from the innovation. There is a difference between innovation and invention. In the first edition of Oslo Manual North edition, first version, there was 3 types of invention. In the 6th last year, there was there's a lot of types of innovations. So this is the first thing. The second thing, remember the ICT rule, GOAT rule. The winner takes all. The winner takes all. It applies for Microsoft, applies for Apple and some other, Oracle and some other. There is another term, disruptive innovation. This disruptive innovation exploding or it is hurried. There are vigilant actors, astute disruptors, which advance their products and propel the market upscale, and they are high. So this is according to theory of innovation, Everett and Rogers. I can say that we are with this APM rather somewhere here, but this will be. I will try to show you later. What is automatic parcel machine innovation? This is why it is innovation. Because for me, it is innovation. for some younger people in Poland, at least, I suppose in Europe also. This is not an innovation, this is kind of regular infrastructure around. Because it is the nexus formerly separate for used technologies or products which are intertwining with postage stamp, former old postage stamp, logistic courier delivery of parcels, handout of parcels, geospatial technology, ICT systems, mobile application or SMS messaging, and front-end website application converted with internet micropayments. This nexus creates the whole innovation, process business innovation. I will not discuss later all the aspects. I would like to concentrate on spatial aspects of the optimization innovations because it is very interesting. Some methods. First, statistics and terms. Out-of-home pickup, drop access points. Automated person machines, lockers, simply. Next, there is, of course, classic geographical approach, significance, social significance, measure density of population, number of population, which is adjacent to the out-of-home location, access point or APM. We use also univariate and bivariate spatial correlation coefficients and classic Pearson correlation coefficients to figure out what are these spatial relations. Some more about parcel lockers. This is really an invention. First, it was backstation. I don't know.
Correctly.
Correct.
Backstation.
Yeah. It was in the beginning of the 21st century. Later, it was hidden by paywall of patent, different patents, protected from competitors. This is again the definition of this nexus, but I would like to show some triggers. The first, before COVID-19, the most delivery was courier handout. The COVID-19 was the trigger, the first trigger. The second is the problem of last mile. This is a very complicated problem in logistics, and generates high cost. What is parcel lockers as innovation? Unattended boxes that are used to drop off and pick up parcels unattended, and which can be accessed by consumers around the clock thanks to the electronic encryption technology. That's why this is. So, first we should get, I didn't say about data. Some data of e-post are hidden. We have scraped it from some web pages and compared it to National Statistical Grid of Population. So this is, and the other part of data I asked from a specialized firm, last mile experts, which report every year their findings about this market segment. So, as you see, there are some in Europe over 60,000 parcel lockers out of home. It means that together APM and access points make manual. We call them pick up drop off access points. In the meantime, of course, in the meantime, InPost had 30,000 APMs, lockers, automatic parcel machine lockers. This is per 10,000 inhabitants in 2022. Take a look for a map when we create multivariate map out of home PUDOs, pick up, drop off, access points versus APM. So there's a clear, the core areas are rather more traditional. The border sphere of Europe are very enormous, modern, and use this application. Next, we try to, this is only to see, because we put our data straight from web pages on a map of density of population. This is 1 kilometer, 1 square kilometer grid, national census population of Poland. So these are functional urban areas and major cities inside. And this is the map of density of population in geometric scale. So this is, and first results. First, we found that univariate spatial autocorrelation of this data within this 1 square kilometer grid is not no 0, no 1, just somewhere in the middle. So this is the general spatial autocorrelation for the whole Poland. This is the map of local indicators of spatial autocorrelation of InPost. It means that we can classify the whole locations when there are concentrations, clusters with high or bagels around this area, and also low outliers. Next, we used also the newest version of Geoda of Lukanzelin, and he introduced bivariate spatial autocorrelations models. So this general value priced up to 0.5, and we used rather geographical colors, but the same similar picture of this. There are metropolitan concentration clusters. Almost there are not high-low. These outliers are almost invisible. My colleague made a very detailed analysis for 3 of metropolitan areas: Olsztyn, Warsaw, and Łódź. So I try to make it more visible. Maybe it will be. So these are number of parcel machines per 100 people in metropolitan areas of selected Polish cities. So you can't see the inside metropolitan. We made it for. It is the first pilot study, so we cannot, for the moment, interpret some results. So, what we can say during the discussion, pandemic was a trigger. This is the first. The next, so-called white label boxes parcels means that this is the new kind of film in this market segment, because it simply serves this joining to SEP services, courier, express delivery. E-consumers, some surveys proved that e-consumers abandoned mail services and direct courier deliveries because of increased mobility, elasticity, and release time pressure. Now more interested. I must say that I have a few hundred meters, there's in post, we call it paczkomat, pack station.
Yeah.
There is a all day long, all night long, it is working. I must say I didn't use it, but my daughter showed me how to use it, because I am traditional. Okay, the core countries of European Union, France, Germany, Netherlands, and Italy employ a hybrid model of this APM. This, I don't know why. I will be looking for why. Maybe this is the temporary observation. It will change, but these border zones are really very interesting because the APMs are very are developing.
Yeah.
And last, I hope.
Perfect.
Okay. Last week I got the next report from last night experts. I'm contacted with them. So take a look for the groups, European groups. Deutsche Post, DHL, Germany. I don't know the exact name, which are pick-up, drop-offs, lockers, automated, and out-of-home points in total.
Yeah.
DPD, GLS, InPost. Take a look, APMs. Almost the same.
Yeah.
And I must say that this is InPost in the moment is international group because it has APMs in Poland, Czech, Italy, Spain, Benelux, and United Kingdom. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Piotr, for you perfectly keeping the time. So, sorry, I guess there's time for questions. Any questions? On one of your slides, Piotr, you mentioned Poland is Lockerland. Okay.
For the moment.
Yeah, right.
But this is not my opinion.
No.
This is a citation.
Yeah. As of now, if we consider Poland a Lockerland, does it mean that these systems are well accepted by the public? Are they frequently used?
Yes. It is, in my opinion, this is like a snowfall.
Okay.
Yes, because all other firms at this market segment now putting somewhere every corner there is a new APM with other logo on the front. So this is
Okay,
crazy.
thank you.
Almost crazy.
Questions? Another point at the end, you mentioned that there is a set of core, what we call core countries of the EU, where these H access
Out
points.
of home
Yeah,
access points. These are third-party retailers,
Yeah.
small shops when you pick up, drop off.
Exactly. There's a human factor involved. Huh?
Yes, yes.
Okay, and I wonder why there are less of these access points, for instance, in Poland or the other.
This is the question
Okay.
to be solved. For the
nail.
moment, I can only hypothesize
Yes.
that this is the matter of traditional thinking.
Okay.
The new generation will come and will change this thinking.
They don't
This
care
is only
about the
the
human factor.
assumption. Okay.
Okay. So thank you very much again, Jutta. Thank you all presenters and all of us to keep to the time. Thank you, Shiva, for doing the technical assistance, and thank you, the audience and presence. We have a strong presence in this session. And I think we can be very thankful for it. So thank you. This winds up the session. We can have discussions of whatever kind during the lunch break or even at the excursion trip. Thank you very much for attending and hope to see you at the excursion. Thank you.
Yeah, good.